have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
Hello and welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is episode 134, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Hey, if you are in the business of winning, we have a great show for you today. We've got Series XM's voice that kind of drops everything. You want that DFS, you want that season-long stuff, all-stop shop here, XM Fantasy Guru site. We got Jeff Mans joining us today. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the nice introduction. But yeah, happy to be here. Excited to talk some ball with y'all.
And we like to go bold every once in a while on this show. So we're going to go into your top 5 bold predictions. And we know you love your top 5 list. We listen to that every day there on the radio. There's a few more people getting involved, but no one wants my top 5. No one wants Major's top 5. We just want your top 5. So we're going to get that here in a second here. We're going to start off. If you've seen the intro video there, if you've seen the thumbnail right off the get-go, you know we're going to talk about James Cook here at some point. So, Jeff, let's kick off these bold predictions with a little James Cook flavor right off the hop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in on this. I don't know about the bold prediction thing. I'm mostly a wallflower. I'm kind of scared of saying anything controversial. Those who know that's a complete joke. But yeah, I'm in on James Cook, and I wasn't going into the drafts. It's one of those situations, guys, where we do all of our pre-draft evaluations, and we kind of hope for certain guys to land in certain places. And I just wasn't really a James Cook guy. But I'll tell you, I am a Buffalo Bill running game guy, and the changes that they've made this offseason really intrigue me. They're going to go back to at least a little bit of a more of a running game. They bring in a new offensive line coach in Aaron Cromer. He was there when they led the league in rushing back in 2015, 2016. Going to go zone blocking scheme as well. And then, oh, by the way, they bring in one of the best in Roger Saffold. You may know him from leading Todd Gurley and the LA Rams to fantasy prominence. And then, oh, by the way, Derrick Henry's 2,000-yard season. Yeah, that's Roger Saffold now playing left guard there. So I'm in, and Singletary, nice end of the season, right. No question about it. Very productive, but very touchdown heavy as well. At 5'7", 180, I just don't see it. Cook is undersized as well, but fits the zone system a lot better. I think he goes for 1,100 plus total yards, guys.
There you have it, 1,100 plus total yards. We're not talking about rushing yards here. We're combining those pass catching abilities that he definitely possesses at Georgia. We saw what he did at Georgia as a pass catcher. Absolute nightmare on linebackers when they got him out hunt space there. So if the Bills can get him going, and we know Josh Allen, let's be honest, Josh Allen is probably still the RB1 in Buffalo, no matter how you want to look at it. But if you get yourself a mismatch there, you already got Gabriel Davis, who everyone seems to be falling in love with, except for me. You got Stephon Diggs out there still. So if you get that mismatch down inside there, linebacker on running back, we're not talking Cole Beasley here. We're talking James Cook. I can see this as definitely a possible outcome for Cook to hit that 1,100-yard mark.
So is Cook just automatically getting thrust up like before Zach Moss? Is Zach Moss out the equation now?
Yeah, for me, he is, and it's unfortunate. I was a Zach Moss guy, quite honestly, but the writing's on the wall. He's had his opportunities. He hasn't been able to stay healthy at times, and then when he has, he just hasn't been productive. I don't think you use that pick on James Cook if Moss is in this equation. So yeah.
Oh yeah. What about Duke Johnson? Is in the Duke is always he has his moments. He'll give you a good 2 or 3 weeks.
It's the interesting about the Bills is they signed J.D. McKissick and they want him to be the passing down guy, and then boom, McKissick thwarts them to go back to Washington. Interesting move there, and Buffalo was pissed off about it, and it was a whole thing this offseason, and then they go out and say, fine, we'll take Duke Johnson, but then they go get James Cook. So the way I look at it is I'm pretty sure, and that's why I do say the total yards thing. I think Cook slides in right away as sort of the passing down guy. However, he's just bigger and more powerful than Devin Singletary is, and thus behind this offensive line, you don't need to be the fastest running back in the world. You just need to be a good one-cut runner in Aaron Kromer's system, zone blocking system, and I think James Cook possesses that trait, as does his brother Dalvin in Minnesota, who, by the way, his whole career changed when you brought in Gary Kubiak and Rick Dennison, also zone scheme, also zone running. I think it's just such a perfect fit, but I think he may start out a little early, pass catcher, but it's just a matter of time before he takes over the RB1 role.
Let's get out of Buffalo. Who's second on that list? Oh, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want a quick question. I don't know if this is a bold or if this is going to slide in here in any way, shape, or form, but when was the last time the NFL had two brothers play the running back position who say maybe get close to 3,000 yards total offense?
I cannot remember a time. I can't remember.
I don't remember any brother running back combos.
The closest is the two Adrian Petersons. You guys remember that back in the day? Anybody in your leagues put the wrong sticker on the board, and you're like, gotcha! First round, you took the Bears Adrian Peterson instead of the Vikings.
Try to send you a trade offer for that. No, yeah, always, dude.
Absolutely.
Well, who's number two on your list there?
Well, I'm going to go. I want one high side, so I decided let's give your guy, the Vipers crowd, a guy who will underperform. That's Cordero Patterson. I'm absolutely out. He will not finish in the top 50 as a running back. He is not a running back. It's all fake. It's all lies. He's 31 years old. He's a long strider. He's a kickoff returner. He is a body catcher. There's so many things wrong with Patterson and why he failed as a receiver. And he's not a terrible receiver at this point in his career, but he's not a running back. And we saw it down the stretch. Anybody who was counting, it was great what he did, but it was so random, so touchdown heavy. And by the way, also very reception heavy in those weeks. When Calvin Ridley went down, Patterson went up. He was playing wide receiver, but still listed as a running back. Don't even get me started on why Deebo Samuel doesn't get running back status, because he should. Because that's the truth. He played more running back last year than Cordero Patterson played the previous 2 years, but nevertheless, that was a fluke, and to count on that kind of production, I think is borderline absurd in fantasy football. You just can't. And if you do, you better have another running back that you actually can count on later on, like James Cook.
Well, Atlanta's interesting how that offense is kind of constructed. They got Kyle Pitts, who's not traditionally your tight end. He's about 79% in the slot. So you got Anthony Ferkster there, maybe as the inline tight end, I guess. Mm-hmm. But at that running back position, if you put Drake London out there, you got Brian Edwards, maybe Cordero Patterson kind of slides in that slot if either Damian Williams or Tyler Algier can take that running back position. We've seen what Damian Williams did in the Super Bowl just a few years ago. He should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl, let's be honest. And Algier, they're pretty high on this kid.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He's a hardworking guy. He is a three-down back. We saw him do very well in Kansas City. You mentioned that playoff run that he had was absolutely phenomenal. And there's another aspect of that the Falcons, they brought in a new running back coach this offseason. That running back coach, Michael Pitre, he was from Chicago last year where he worked with Damian Williams. So there's a connection and familiarity there. Dave Rangon also worked in Chicago. So there's a little bit, there's something to that. I think that there is a chance. Algier's a converted linebacker turned running back, quarterback turned linebacker turned running back. So I think he's a little more of a project, but later on in the season could be a threat. I think Damian Williams is the true running back there and gives them what Mike Davis couldn't a year ago.
But he's 30, 31 years old? Is that,
30,
the whole thing about running backs when they hit 28 is downhill, right?
Right, but he's at least a running back, and he sat out the 2020 season due to, so it's a low wear and tear 30. Your point is valid, and when anybody brings that point to me about Williams, I just say, well, Patterson's older, and he's a kickoff returner. You know what I mean? So I would rather have a 30-year-old true running back than a guy who plays kickoff returner that's kind of a receiver that's trying to play running back. I just, no thank you. I'd rather give me the running back out of that equation, especially at a discount.
Damian Williams is like a free square in fantasy bingo right now. He's probably not even getting drafted right now. If you're in a best ball league, this is one of those guys. Why not take a chance on late in your drafts? Because he could be that big payday guy later on in the season.
It is. You can't do it like in an underdog format where it's only 18 rounds. I mean, you could. Absolutely. I think it's worth a shot. But, last round type of guy. But in some of those best balls where you get 20, the BB10s and such, now all of a sudden 20, 30 round bigger drafts, that's where you pull a Damian Williams out of your hat and it could be pure gold.
Right.
All right. Bold prediction number 3.
Let's go Mecole Hardman. I think he's the wide receiver to own in Kansas City. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's a guy who I think he is the Chiefs wide receiver 1. I think he replaces Tyreek Hill. I think a lot of people assume it's going to be Juju, of course. And I think Juju will play inside a little bit. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, a much bigger weapon down the field. But, Mahomes has done well with that fast run after the catch guy. And don't forget, Hardman was drafted to replace Tyreek Hill when we thought Tyreek may be suspended or kicked out of football altogether with the girlfriend situation and all that. So this is a guy who's been sort of groomed for that role. He's made big catches. Go see 2 AFC championship games where Hardman has made big plays for them. And I think he's the natural fit inside. He's got that relationship already, and he's sort of the lowest drafted of the Chiefs wide receivers right now. So, and that also never underestimate a guy who's playing for a contract, which he absolutely is, and, 5th-year extension at the very least. So, not going to get, because he was a second-round pick, not a first-round. So, playing for a big contract as well. So, I think Mecole Hardman's actually the guy here, and, Sky Moore is exciting, but Sky Moore is Mecole Hardman light, right? And he's just a newer version, so he's sexier to all his fantasy players. But Andy Reid will give Mecole Hardman every chance to lose this job. Maybe he does, but I'm willing to take a gamble at his current ADP.
Let's go with number 4 on that list.
Number 4, I'm going with a team. Giants. New York Giants, surprise team. They make the playoffs this year. First year under Brian DeBall. Daniel Jones, another guy he's playing for a 5th-year extension as well. He's playing for a new contract. They've got a lot of weapons in New York, right? They've done a lot for everyone ripping on Gettleman, and I get it. But he has built the bones. He has built a team that just needed a kick in the fanny at the offensive line, and you go get Evan Neal, one of the surest things. You get Mark Lewinsky, who's blocked for Jonathan Taylor the last couple of years. You have Andrew Thomas on the left side as well. This offensive line, Matt Pert, UConn 3rd rounder from a couple years ago, now swings into a backup swing role, which is perfect. Gives them some depth up front. You got Galladay, Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. Saquon Barkley, this offense is like low-key loaded up, and the defense was not nearly that bad, and they get Kayvon Thibodeau, a true edge rusher, to pair with Dexter Lawrence on the inside. So all of a sudden, the Giants have some real pieces here. Now they lose Bradbury. The coverage may, although some numbers would suggest Bradbury was definitely falling off as of last year. But I think this is a team in a division that I think takes a giant step backward, most notably the Cowboys. And in a weak NFC, I say the Giants wind up in the playoffs.
But they're the Giants. They're going to find a way to be the Giants after all that great stuff you said.
Well, Brian DeBall is the one who saved Josh Allen's career. He went up there and changed that offense for the better, and he was really responsible for everything that happened in Buffalo offensively. And then you get Don Martindale, their defensive coordinator. He's been with Baltimore for the last decade plus. A guy who likes to be aggressive and schemes very aggressively and likes to preach turnovers and things like that. So all of a sudden, this coaching staff ain't no joke, and there's a lot of talent that I agree. Joe Judge was a joke, and what's the redhead guys? All of a sudden, Jason Garrett was a joke as offensive coordinator. So all of a sudden, you bring in, you're terrible, but you get all this talent in the draft and in free agency, And now you bring in some coaches that actually do something with it, and that's always ripe for a team that defies expectations.
Well, you mentioned these Giants, and I kind of looking at some of this depth chart here there on my heat check. You got Adoree Jackson and Aaron Robinson, who are capable corners there to kind of replace James Bradbury. Not great, not the sexiest names out there, but they can get the job done. Where I really like it is now that front end, whether you have Kevin Thibodeau there, you got Aziz Ojulari there.
Yep.
He's coming in his second year. He was doing some good things towards the end. You still got in the middle Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams securing that front down. So you've got yourself a pretty solid defense. Yes, they had their disadvantages towards the end of the season. They got beat up here and there. But on paper right now, you add in Darian Beavers and Micah McFadden, guys from the draft here this year. They've got a lot more athleticism on that side of the ball. Now, what people don't quite understand is the Giants have Tyrod Taylor backing up Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor is basically our generation's Steve DeBerg. Wherever Tyrod Taylor goes,
great call.
The quarterback in question now all of a sudden becomes superstar-esque. Baker Mayfield had a couple good seasons after Tyrod left. Then we've seen the whole Justin Herbert thing. Davis Mills resurrection there in Houston. So, Tyrod Taylor, he seems to bring out the best out of these quarterbacks. Maybe not the best out of the training staff, but definitely out of the quarterbacks that he's working with. And when you mention this offense, when Darius Slayton is your wide receiver 5, that's pretty good depth. Now, mind you, the way this wide receiver core went down with injury last year, it's probably a good thing they got 5-6 deep at the wide receiver core.
Right.
But you look at their strength of schedule. If Daniel Jones cannot get the job done this year, there's no going back for him. This is definitely the most talented group of players he's ever worked with. Saquon Barkley should be close to 100%. I mean, even when his ankle's swollen, it's still bigger than my thigh. Let's be honest with that too. But Daniel Jones, this strength of schedule is among the easiest as far as fantasy is concerned. So there's no excuses from this point on.
And I hate to do this, but if you really want a research project, go look at the first 2 years of Josh Allen and go look at the past 2 years of Daniel Jones before DeBall changed the offense. I know. We don't want to hear. I know, but look at it, and they're kind of like crazy similar. So
I like you. I was going to boo you with the sound effects, but I like you too much. But that's your first warning.
I saw you, Major. I saw you shaking your head.
I looked at it. I was like, oh.
Believe me, when I ran the schedule and I look at that, I wanted to vomit. Trust me, but I didn't want to cheat you guys out of the truly bold stuff here.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got bold predictions 1 through 4 here right now. I think we've got 4 bold predictions. How about we go one more bold prediction here? What do we got?
Well, let's go. I figured let's make a Super Bowl prediction. Let's just say it with our chest. Let's stuff it out, Peacock style. Now, one of these is not a bold prediction at all. It's pretty obvious. But the other, I think we're going to see an all Los Angeles Super Bowl, Chargers and Rams. Unfortunately, I just can't. I could predict. I see the Giants as a surprise team, but I don't see them as a true contender or anybody. The NFC is atrocious right now. And the Rams go out and get Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner, and they draft a couple linemen to replace Whitworth. It's like, oh my God, they just restocked again. They get Cam Akers back for a whole year. It's like, oh man. But the Chargers are the team I think will be the one battle tested. And I'll tell you, whichever team ends up coming out of that AFC West, the toughest division in I think the history of football, that's a team that's been battle-tested and playoff ready. And I think Herbert's ready to take that step and put this team on his shoulders. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa with J.C. Jackson. Yeah. Woo, they got a defense now, kids. So I like the Chargers.
I mean, I think whoever's quarterback is still standing when it's all said and done. Yeah. You just mentioned Bosa and Mack. We got Crosby and Chandler Jones in Vegas. We got Frank Clark and the big dude Jones. There, Chris Jones there in Kansas City. I mean, then you got you still got the Denver Broncos, who they're not a bad team themselves. They got themselves Randy Gregory. So there's some pass rushers in that AFC West to make things really interesting. I mean, just when Russell Wilson thought he got rid of Chandler Jones.
Yeah, right. I mean, now he goes to Vegas and is going to terrorize him again.
Right.
So I don't know. See, I'm a Raiders guy, so the Chargers kind of hurts me a little bit hearing that coming out of that division. But you look at it's going to be that war of attrition there in the AFC West. Could they possibly send 4 teams to the playoffs? Probably not. But I mean, they've got 4 caliber teams in that division.
Yeah, they're going to get at least 3.
if the AFC wasn't so loaded, because you look at even the AFC North is tough, and I think like the Dolphins and Jets have improved in the East. Like there's a lot. Like the AFC it's so heavy right now. We saw this in Major League Baseball years ago, and the American League was just crazy because they spent money on DHs and things. It feels that way in the AFC right now, that they've just got such a overwhelming amount of the top tier talent.
So we've got our 5 bold predictions. I want to touch on a couple little other things here before we sign off and move into the behind the grind. The first thing comes into a major announcement there on the Fantasy Guru Fantasy Football website there. A little training camp conference, something going on there, I seen.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we're going to do a fantasy football training camp. It's going to be a sort of 48-hour event on August 19th, where we are going to have a full day and a half, really, of nonstop seminars, Q&A sessions, teachings, and all that. It's going to be everything from X's and O's, sort of schematics of football, learning about offensive line and blocking schemes, to how to draft, robust RB format, 0 RB format, 2 QB super flex league, things like that, DFS, sports betting on the NFL, futures, all the different, styles and ways that we could profit or just straight up win in this game of NFL football. So it's going to have all of that. I'm going to have a 2-hour thing on that Friday night, a big Q&A where anything's on the table. I love that kind of interfacing with people. So it's going to be fun. And everybody who's entered gets, who participates and comes to it, will be a member of the Elite Mafia Fantasy Football Championship, a special league that we're putting on with everybody. So it's going to be, thousands of people big, and we'll have overall prizes and league prizes as well. Should be a real good time.
Wow.
Is this something that's going to be offered in person and online? Is this something like I could live stream and kind of catch out and maybe
all online? Good catch there. We are, we wanted to have like an event like the Bob Long Kings Cup Classic. Like we're really we love that, obviously, but for us, I think the virtual way to go is a lot easier, given the parameters and what people can do, and obviously it costs airline tickets and things like that nowadays too. So we're going online. It's all going to be through Zoom and the interfaces there, but it will be live and taped, so you can go back and rewatch things as we go during the season. See how wrong Jeff Mans really was in week 8. Say, that son of a gun.
Well, one of the things I want to tune in for, one of the things I want to tune in for when we talk about fantasy football, I want to talk about scoring dependency. I'm sure you all have a little bit of that on there too, because not all scoring is created equally. And I caught that on the show the other day when you kind of threw that out there. We were talking about our leagues and this format and that format. Scoring dependency weighs in a little bit more heavily than maybe myself or Major may think about at this moment.
Well, also you guys and myself, we get the fantasy football industry, if you will, and people that do this sort of for a living or are grinding. We are in a bubble of like PPR, full point PPR. This is how it is. Like that's it. But when we start going outward and people listen to this podcast and my show on XM and things like that, I mean, they play by different sets of rules. And one of the things I always do with my phone calls is I immediately ask, what format are you in? Is it full point, half point, or standard league, no point for a reception? Because that alters the advice we'd give in the league setup a little bit. Also, if it's a 2 QB league and the 2 QB Superflex, big difference to me, at least, between those two. And how deep are your benches and when waivers are running. There's all these different league setups. But yeah, how a player scores their points is very paramount. And you look at like Philadelphia and A.J. Brown, it's great to get a receiver like that, but how is he going to be used? Because Jalen Hurts ran the ball more than his 7th most yards, 4th most rushing touchdowns, and the 6th most accountable fantasy points for a quarterback since 1980. That's, he's doing the work there. Is he going to suddenly become a pocket passer, throw the ball more? We don't know, but, it definitely matters to the, how they acquire their points.
What's your favorite, your favorite format? What's the type of, you like the Dynasty?
I like half point.
Okay.
PPR. I mean, that's my go-to. I think it just there is something about me, and again, I'm an older gentleman in my mid-40s now, as some of the gray hair will show, and I can't watch a football game and see a swing pass for -1 yards and you get 0.9 for it. I don't, we have this thing where, we talk about success rates a lot, right? Per play and down and distance. A good fantasy player should be somebody who's producing successful plays. And my arch nemesis is Danny Woodhead. I was the most Danny Woodhead against him for his life. And I apologize to Danny, but it was a joke. The guy would do nothing. He wouldn't even be on the field. And I'd be watching this. And then he'd come in, fourth quarter, Chargers, Patriots, Jets, whatever team he played for, he'd be down. They'd be down. They'd just chuck. And all of a sudden, then they 6 catches for, 52 yards. And it'd be like, come on, man. What are we doing here? This guy's getting 12 points for nothing, And then people celebrate, oh, Danny Woodhead's like, he wasn't even part of the game. He didn't even do anything. So that, we're too weighted on the reception. We created this, and I've been playing since 1989 because I'm an old turd. And, we created the PPR because it'd just be all running backs. So we created to have wide receivers have value. But now wide receivers have more value pretty much than running backs, and there are more of them. So we're stuck in a format that I think is a little outdated in the whole point.
Especially when you start looking at that top 30 year in and year out now. It's almost 50-50 split between the wide receiver position and the running back position. And you would know this if you went out there and got yourself the 2022 Fantasy Guru Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Let's get that promo going there.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I love that. Thank you. Appreciate it. Absolutely. Scoring dependency chart there all the time to see how these points were acquired. Very important, I think.
All right, and with that, hey, this is part 1 of this week's Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. We did some bold predictions. We talked a little bit about scoring, some leagues, this and that. Now, we're about to go behind the grind here in part 2 of this week's ViperCast, so stay tuned for that. We'll catch you around on the other side. One more thing. Don't put fantasy football in a vacuum. Fantasy football does not belong in a vacuum. Let's go. We'll see you next time.
You should have ended it when you did.